The biggest crossover boxing event ever. Live on the Zone pay-per-view, October 14th. Sign up at DAZN.com.
We've seen Tyson get floored. I mean, it's not like he doesn't get hit. Wilder, we admit, has a terrific fight. But don't forget the Cunningham fight in New York, which was a lighter heavyweight that hit him on the chin and had him on his seat. So I think what they're saying is muck it up. And if you can touch him up, you're going to have a chance here.
Welcome back to the Battle of the Baddest podcast. It's episode 6. Coming up on this week's show, joining me live from Las Vegas, Todd DuBoef, the CEO of Top Rank, Tyson Fury's American promoters. Also, 2 Celtic warriors, 2 British legends in Carl Frampton and Josh Taylor, and also a man with a very famous British boxing name. Yes, it's Eubank. And this week, it's Harlem Eubank, the super lightweight who fights in November. All that and more coming up. Well, starting the show today, it gives me absolute pleasure to welcome in Todd DuBoef, live from America. He's on his way to Las Vegas today, actually. He's been there in the last week or two, and I am now going to catch up with him. Todd, how are you?
How are you? I'm great. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well indeed. 3 weeks to Fury versus NGANNOU, Tyson Fury versus Francis NGANNOU. I haven't had an opportunity to really catch up with you over it yet. One of the biggest events you've ever been involved in?
You know, I think the newness of it for us makes it really impactful and big, right? You know, going into the region, being a part of FEAT season, which is a very, very big festival for them, makes it very big. I think the crossover effect of, I think the MMA boxing type of crossover effect makes it feel unique and different. So it's hard after 30 years to say the biggest events. I mean, because they all have this different significance, but I feel this is going to be a very unique experience.
Obviously, I spoke to Bob a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying that the shift, the investment from Saudi Arabia, the investment into boxing, into heavyweight boxing, particularly at the moment from Saudi Arabia, is fascinating, and it's amazing to be a part of it. And it is almost like a paradigm shift that we're involved with at the moment.
You know, I'm not sure this is isolated to boxing. I think us in the boxing world have a habit of getting stuck in our little rabbit hole and think everything around us is constant. Look at the soccer players. They attracted. Headlines last week is they're going to be a finalist for the World Cup. You know, in the 1900 cycle. Look at them. You know, hosting Formula One, Formula E, WWE. They're just they are now becoming a way to establish themselves to be, a hub for global entertainment. And when you think of global entertainment, as the child being from Las Vegas, that's what Las Vegas and Caesar's Palace was, right? It used boxing as that mechanism, right? To draw people there, to draw attention there. Just sit outside in the stands, see the crowd parking lot, and draw global attention. And I think they're playing right out the playbook, but at a way bigger level on every sport, and boxing is just that.
What's fascinating is the rapidity, the alacrity, the speed with which they're adopting and adapting and understanding how all these sports work and how boxing works and how the algorithms are there for promotion. I mean, I find that fascinating as well. It's something that obviously you've been involved with television deals and the pizzazz of events, of upgrading Top Rank over the last 20, 25 years into kind of more theatre, more drama. And they seem to have just established that very, very quickly, certainly around this event?
I mean, I think the launch, the press conference, the theatrical surrounding they created, the theatrical environment, as if you were going to premiere the opera Mission Impossibility, is a sign of that. I think they are executing. Once they have the events, they are executing terrifically in a fast way, in a terrific way, really at a high level. And I think when you start to look at sporting events, you start to look at big events, Olympics, or Super Bowl, I mean, we have integrated content within the Super Bowl, which is a halftime show. It's the college football championship with big production, with music and entertainment, dances. And I think I think they're showing, putting the best foot forward. I mean, this is going to happen here at that level, and maybe.
Well, one of those things, one of those promotional things, I know you were in Las Vegas at the launch of it. If we can just see this, the sphere rotating in Las Vegas. I mean, you've been there in person. I haven't been there, and a lot of us haven't seen it in person. That sphere is enormous, isn't it? And to see Fury and NGANNOU in 3D and the Battle of the Baddest as it circulates there. I mean, you were there at the opening of it. Was it very dramatic?
Well, there's two pieces that we're talking about. One is the sphere itself, the experience of being inside of it. And obviously, I'm a big YouTube fan. I've seen it many times, but seeing it in the setting was absolutely just, something experientially, something I never experienced before, which I had seen before. Part of it was immersive. It was not only the sensory of music, but the visual sensory that they really hit on. And it just felt like you were transplanted, constantly taking into so that absolutely was, fantastic. The outside of this field, the LED display that is able to specifically at night illustrate either a basketball for the NBA, a marketing for the biggest and baddest. Fury and NGANNOU is just so, and has such a good when you see it, you're like, oh my God. So I think there are two pieces to it. It has a bit of a lot of signal, a lot of flash. And you see the content on the outside of that building, and you're driving by it, or you're flying over it, either in a hotel or in the city, and you're seeing this illuminated, massive sphere of just electricity. But when you're inside it, it's equally or even surpasses any dynamic that I've ever seen.
But I thought it was fascinating. I don't know whether you're involved in it, but the baddest of the Battle of the Baddest fight was being advertised, if you like, in Las Vegas, as if to say, look, just look, this is what we're doing. Please note Las Vegas.
Yeah, no, I think it's part of the, we call out those big splashes kind of the real marketing, right? Taking rats and trains or subways and Times Squares or Piccadilly Squares, and it's a guerrilla marketing. It's elegantly done, but guys did get a big punch. And I think that outside the piece was really done by the Riyadh season, giving attention to the season, and obviously using Fury and NGANNOU.
Fantastic. I want to talk to you about the card in a minute, but I've spoken this week to 3 people for the Battle of the Baddest podcast. First of all, Harlem Eubank, who has a fight in November, the super lightweight. Here's what he had to tell me. Harlem Eubank, I want to ask you, a lot of people are writing off Francis Ngannou against Tyson Fury. Strange things happen in boxing.
You're from a family steeped in the sport. Your father, your uncle, your cousin, the name Eubank resonates as legendary in British boxing. You have a fight coming up on November the 10th in Brighton, your hometown, against Timo Schwarzkopf, of course, and we are really looking forward to your fight. But on October the 28th, Tyson Fury takes on Francis Ngannou. Does he have to be wary against the former UFC champion, the Gypsy King?
Most definitely he has to. As we know in boxing, it's so exciting because one punch can change anything. And Ngannou has that punch. He has that power. That's what he brings to that fight. So it's in Fury's, hands to outbox him and avoid that, which I think he should do. But Ngannou brings that, that factor where he has the game changer. He has the equalizer. And should he execute it, should he land it, then it levels the playing field, doesn't it?
Especially as it's heavyweights.
It's a different game. It's less about skills up there and more about sheer, force. And Ngannou has that, but Fury is the most tricky boxer in that division and knows how to handle most boxers, let alone UFC stars. So my prediction would go with Fury for that.
If you were in Ngannou's corner and you were in his training camp, what would you be advising him to do?
Channel that wild power, find opportunities to let them hands go at different angles, unpredictable angles, use that UFC pedigree to give Fury, he has something he hasn't seen before. He's seen boxers with power, but he hasn't seen a UFC fighter with power and them shots coming at different angles that are unpredictable to block and see. So I would definitely try and get him to utilize that.
What do you make of the theory, finally, that with Fury and Alexander Usyk signed, it might have just sharpened the mind of Fury if he was underestimating this task against Ngannou? That people were saying, he'll just take it too easy, might take his eye off the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I hope not, because that's the fight we want to see, isn't it? That's the real fight of the heavyweight division right now. Fury Usyk. We want to see the skills be, the smaller guy that's got a lot of skills and shown that over and over again. So, I hope he stays focused, stays sharp, and doesn't take his eye off the ball, because Ngannou can change that in a second. But I expect Fury to cruise to victory, and then we'll see the real heavyweight matchup.
Todd, I don't know what you make of that. Harlem Eubank saying you cannot write Francis Ngannou off in this fight against Tyson Fury because one punch can change anything in a heavyweight fight, and he's got the equalizer in his hands. And he says that when you've got that power, that kind of punch power, you can't be completely written off, even though people see Fury as an enormous favourite.
I think that's been the sentiment across the board. I think when we've seen these crossover fights, we've had some difficulty. People have said, I don't see them playing out right. I think that, it's two different sports and you're putting one guy in a format that doesn't make sense. But I think when you talk about, even Mayweather getting touched up for a second by Conor McGregor, right? He did land a punch. Floyd was catching punches. But when you think of the sheer size of those Ngannou and Fury and power that we know he has, it is heavyweights. Anything can happen. Me and I have been around and seen heavyweight matches where, all of a sudden, Buster Douglas comes out of the nowhere and it's with Mike Tyson, right? And it's a 45-1 shot. So that makes the equalizer. I think size doesn't matter.
We're talking about heavyweights. What an undercard of heavyweight fights. Fabio Wardley, David Adeleye, Joseph Parker, Simon Keane, Martin Bakole, Carlos Takam. I think I'm forgetting one here. There's a guy called Arslanbek Makhmudov, who you guys promote. who I think he's a little bit under the radar at the moment, one of the dark horses of the division. Obviously, he's an Eastern European man mountain. You'll have stood next to him. I couldn't believe how big he was the first time I stood next to him, because he is literally, it feels like a double barn door when you stand next to him. He's 6'5", he feels about 5 foot wide. He's a very gentle fellow, but he is a tank in the ring, isn't he?
I mean, do you remember that James Bond movie, the guy Jaws? You know, that was like had the big teeth and
Yeah.
the silver teeth. And he was like this one. That's what he reminds me of. It's like Jaws of boxing, right? The guy's coming out at you. I think the show was really well put together, collaboratively, with the host, host venue, and I think the Sella and GEA realize, listen, let's bring a heavyweight type of match here, eclectic, and always, hitting all the different sides of it, put on really competitive fights. And they know that, the heavyweights never go away. And one of those that are in the pack could be the next Tyson Fury, or Ngannou, or Joshua, or Wilder, or Usyk. And to bring them to the center stage in this format is just something that helps elevate the sport altogether. So I think they curated together, we all curated a wonderful.
Yeah, I do think Arslanbek Makhmudov is one of those guys that may well, if he keeps going like he does, be one of the big stars of the division at the moment.
Yeah, I think you have a really, I think it's actually a subject for a further conversation. What do the heavyweights look like after the top, four, right? And the four that really could probably say maybe on their back nine right now. And start to look at, the Ottawa, who just had a great win the other day. The Herta Biggs of the world, and the Jared Andersons of the world, the world. I mean, we're really seeing a really nice, we talk about the renaissance that happened with this class that's already in there. It's perpetuating, it's staying in line with it. We're not seeing it fall off. We're not seeing who's next. It used to be a narrative that was always like, what's next?
Yeah.
And I think we have a pack of guys that are next. And a pack of guys that are really going to make compelling fights and very challenging, and they're going to connect to a big audience. And they're heavyweights.
Great stuff, Todd. I've also caught up with another one of your guys this week, Josh Taylor, the former undisputed super lightweight champion of the world. I know you're bringing him back maybe early next year or late this year. I spoke to him about that. Josh Taylor, one of the great British fighters, of course, very proud Scotsman. Well, he had this to tell me, Todd, about Ngannou, what he has to do against Tyson Fury.
Josh, thanks for talking to me for the Battle of the Baddest podcast. Tyson Fury, Francis Ngannou. It's a month away now. A lot of people not giving Francis Ngannou much of a chance. Obviously, he's been a UFC heavyweight champion.
Yeah.
Are there things that Fury's got to be careful about in this fight?
It's difficult to say. I mean, he's got a puncher's chance, that's for sure. He looks like he can punch. He looks like he can really whack. So he's always got that chance. He obviously can really fight. But boxing wise, I've seen a bit of some videos of him lately the last couple of days. He's doing a little bit of boxing and doesn't look up to much. But if he's always got that puncher's chance. If he catches Tyson, it could be lights out. They're big men. They're like getting hit with one of these guys, like getting kicked from a horse. So anything can happen in heavyweight boxing for sure. I just don't think Ngannou can get anywhere near Tyson Fury, to be honest. I think for one, Tyson's bigger than him, and he's the heavyweight world champion, and he's a good big mover as well. So I think Ngannou will struggle, but if he can get that shot off, it could be lights out. But I'm really struggling to see it.
If you were in his corner advising Ngannou, what would you get him to do when the bell rings?
Don't really know, because it's a hard one. You've not really seen how he's been performing or training or anything like that. So I guess for me, it would just be, you're not going to outbox him, so try and make it ugly and physical, and and make it a real fight. Try and get close to him, and just try and make it a dog fight, really. Try and push him back to the ropes, and use a bit of your grappling when you're up close, and using your head sort of control and all that kind of stuff, and try and make it a real dirty dog fight. But I think that's his only chance, and if he catches him with one of his big punches, that's the only kind of chance to see him having. But nevertheless, it's heavyweight boxing, and anything can happen.
If Ngannou did pull off the improbable and landed a big punch and got Fury down or knocked him out, would that be the biggest upset in heavyweight boxing we've ever seen, do you think?
Yeah, it's got to be. It's got to be, isn't it? Certainly since Tyson and Buster Douglas. That was,
Buster Douglas.
Buster Douglas. That was a huge one. But I think this would be even bigger. Yeah, I think this would be bigger, because he would be losing to a non-boxer. Yeah,
and he's the number one in the era, isn't he?
Yeah. So yeah, it would be. I think it would be the biggest heavyweight upset. Yeah.
And after seeing, if you've seen it, Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois, did you think Usyk would beat Fury before you saw that fight? Do you think Usyk beats Fury at all?
I think Usyk gives him a hell of a lot of problems, that's for sure, with his movement and his style and his shot picking and stuff. I think it would be a bit of a nightmare for Tyson in terms of Tyson trying to get him down and nail him down and with his movement and stuff. But I've always said that a good big one always beats a good little one. And I just think Tyson's just too big and too powerful. I just think it's just too big and too powerful for Usyk. But I do think that Usyk will give him huge problems with his movement and his tactics and stuff. But I've always said that I think Tyson would just be a little bit too big, and also a good boxing brain as well. So I just think he's just too big to be beaten by Usyk. And we saw that Daniel Dubois gave him a little bit of problems as well, with hurting him with them body shots.
Is your view on Fury coloured by you doing some sparring with him? Because I know he's a foot taller than you and I. You had a little spar with him, didn't you?
I was just like hitting a big heavy bag. It's like I guess me hitting away at him. I think he was just like getting stung by a wasp or something. Annoying little pesky wasp. But yeah, he's just like, it was just like hitting a big heavy bag. It probably felt like I was tickling him.
Brilliant, Josh. Great to speak to you. Thank you for stopping on your commute from Liverpool back up to Preston Pans. It's great to speak to you as always. Stay well. Can't wait to see you back.
Well, him saying there, Todd, Josh believing that Ngannou has a puncher's chance and that he's got to go in there, make it a dogfight, use grappling if he has to. It's his only chance. Make it ugly and make it very physical. He said that's the only way he's going to do it if he can beat Fury. Do you agree?
I think they're all saying. I think these guys are saying the same thing. They're bringing the same components to what they see Ngannou has to do. We've seen Tyson get floored. I mean, it's not like he doesn't get hit, and it's not like Wilder, we admit, has a terrific fight. But don't forget the Cunningham fight in New York, which was a lighter heavyweight that hit him on the chin and had him on his seat. So I think what they're saying is muck it up, use your physical side, use your punch, and if you can touch him up, you're going to have a chance here. And I think that's if Mike Tyson's his trainer, if Josh Taylor's his trainer, if any of these guys are his trainer, they're going to give him the same directions. Everybody can see how it can play out being in the sport. It's heavyweights. And just get inside on him and try to land that shot.
Very interesting, Todd. Like you say, a lot of people seem to have the formula for what Francis Ngannou either has to do or might do. But as we know, you have to expect the unexpected in boxing, especially in heavyweight boxing. Well, I caught up with Carl Frampton. He's got a new book out. He'll be working, of course, a two-weight world champion, absolute legend from Belfast. He will be working, of course, as a pundit and a presenter for TNT Sports on the night in Riyadh season on October the 28th, when TNT Sports broadcast Fury versus Ngannou, the Battle of the Baddest. Here's what Carl had to say.
To write him off completely and give him zero chance, I think that would be foolish. But to give him a small chance, I think that's probably a sensible thing to do. He certainly has a small. I want to say small. It's a very small chance because he's an athletic specimen. He's a monstrous puncher. But you know, he's fighting the lineal heavyweight champion, and he's having his first boxing match. So to put it into perspective, it's going to be a tough night for him. But what I will say is, what gives him an even a slightly better chance is the fact that Fury now has a fight already lined up with Alexander Usyk, and it's announced already as well that this fight's done. I always just see that as a bit of a dangerous thing to do when you haven't had your next fight yet.
It's that weird thing of you're going to win the semi-final anyway to get into the final. You've got to win the semi-final first, haven't you?
Yeah. And I mean, you put it that way and talk about semi-finals. We've seen some big upsets and semi-finals in all different sports. So who knows? But he's got a chance, but it's very, very small.
Do you, if he did do it, would you see it as the biggest upset of a world heavyweight champion in boxing history?
It's gotta be bigger than anything really.
With Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas.
Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas, even I think Ali and Foreman was an upset at the time, and Ali and Liston I think may have been an upset too. Yeah. It's way bigger than Andy Ruiz and Joshua, way bigger than any of those.
Very interestingly, Todd, Carl always very honest and saying, I only see a slim chance for Francis Ngannou. The danger, he believes, we haven't touched on this yet, is that the Fury-Usyk fight has already been signed, and that will Fury have one eye off the ball? What's your take on that?
You know, I'm really, that's a good question. I'm not sure that Tyson plays that, gets distracted that much. I think what we know is that he loves to be up. He loves to be in the gym, loves to see like the schedule played out. And in previous fights that we've had, we've seen him say, hey, I want to fight here, I want to fight there. So he's always had it. I think the Usyk fight, as we've talked about over the last 6 months, prior to getting released, there was a couple of weeks ago, was something that it was inevitable. We all believed it should have happened. No different than Tyson and Joshua should have happened. And I felt really comfortable about, like, I think this makes sense. It makes sense for both guys. So I think Tyson's a real pro. I think he knows what he has to do. And I think he realizes that, that crown that he always wanted, which was Usyk, and to put all the titles together, is right in front of him, and he's got to stay focused.
I agree with you. I can't see him not being focused. But Carl and I talking there about the danger of being in a semi-final almost. Not semi-final, but it's like a semi-final. You've got to get through this one to get to that one. Obviously, he can't get cut or injured and all those things as well. I think it's more jeopardy for him to get through. Carl also saying there, if Ngannou beats Fury, be it by knockout, which most people give him the opportunity to do if he's going to do it, no one can see him outboxing Fury. I can't either. You'd have to be a lunatic to say he's going to outbox Fury over 10 rounds. That doesn't make any sense at all. Carl saying it will be the biggest upset in the history of the heavyweight division if an MMA king, the former UFC heavyweight champion, defeats Tyson Fury, the lineal heavyweight boxing champion. Biggest upset of all time in heavyweight boxing?
I'm not as much of a historian as probably who's translating my offices.
Yeah.
So when I get posed those questions, I call him up and he rattles something off in like the 1910s or something. So I can't say absolute. But maybe in my lifetime, I think Buster Douglas and Tyson was a pretty big upset.
Andy Ruiz
I think a lot of
knocking Joshua down 4 times was a big upset as well in New York.
nah, but not like Buster Douglas.
But Bob
You
said
know, I
it
think-
was because he said that when you guys had Andy Ruiz for 20 fights, he couldn't punch a hole in a paper bag.
That may be Bob's opinion. We always thought Andy had quick hands and
Yeah.
I could track a little bit. He always had quick hands.
He clearly could.
And we also saw, I mean, I think we saw some vulnerability with Joshua prior to that.
Yeah.
Right. You know, he was on the deck with, I think, with Klitschko. He got buzzed by Dylan White earlier. He was not that aggressive agent, right? He was a little timid, you know, going into that back, you know, ever since those fights. So I'm not sure that was as big of an upset. I mean, I think Tyson was the baddest man on the planet of that era. And going to Japan with who is Buster Douglas was a pretty miraculous upset. A lot of conditions happening, a lot of things. So that was probably the biggest heavyweight upset in my life.
I'm hearing there's a massive appetite, though, from my sources to get Fury against Usyk this year, to go for December the 23rd. A huge appetite from the organisers to get that date. Is that your intel as well? Is that where you guys are headed towards at the moment?
I think we're going to take one. You know, listen, you're asking. We're all asking: is Tyson going to overlook what's in front of him in October? And now you're asking me to overlook what's in front of us in October.
Well, if he does,
so I'm trying to
get through it.
I'm trying to keep.
If he does,
yeah. I mean, I think if he does get through it, I think timing wise, the earlier the better. Right? They're both. Usyk just came out of his win, nice win against Dubois. He's in shape. Tyson's in shape now. The consistency of keeping the cadence going, keeping him on the timeline would make sense to happen sometime in late December, maybe early January. But obviously, we don't control that. We don't have a crystal ball, but that's what you would hope for. I think we get both guys at peak sooner. You know, they'll raise their jar, they'll bang the guard. There's no build up to this one. We already know what's at stake there, right? There's no big press conferences all over the league, multi-city tours. We just go to it, and I think that's important.
do you think in the next 2 or 3 weeks it's really going to dawn on people just how big, like you just described it, the enormity of this event? 2 heavyweights opening a global 6-month season, which has so much investment in it. It's staggering.
I do. I think if you know, I've been very fortunate to meet with the people at the GBA and the seller, the organizers, to see that what we call quote unquote in American terms, the real marketing campaign, right? And as a result of that, you know, I think they're going to start the light switch is going to be on, and you're going to notice it. And when they have this is a wonderful thing to put it this summer, right? This event, these 2 giants at the center of this occasion, this festival, is wonderfully presented. And it's a privilege to be a part of it and to see what they're doing and see how they're going about touching and getting the message out to everybody through social platforms, through digital billboards, through big billboards, through the sphere exteriors. All of that stuff are the elements that are so important to driving awareness in a special event. And creating what we always say is the greatest thing is create that sense of missing out. That if you can't be there, you're missing out, right? That FOMO. And I think they've done a great job, and I've seen what their plans have been to draw attention to it. And I think it's relatively good.
Brilliant stuff, Todd. It's great to catch up with you. Can't wait to see you in Fight Week in Riyadh for the Riyadh season and Fury versus Ngannou, the Battle of the Baddest. Thank you very much for being on the Battle of the Baddest podcast. Have a great day. Well, they lit up the lights in Las Vegas for the Fury and Ngannou Battle of the Baddest, which opens the Riyadh season on October the 28th. 3 weeks to go. There's a lot of excitement around this. And as we've heard today from our boxing experts, those who've been world champions, that you cannot simply write Francis Ngannou off. There's jeopardy here, and we will find out in 3 weeks' time. You've been watching Battle of the Baddest. I'm Gareth Davies. We'll see you next week.
The biggest crossover boxing event ever, live on the Zone pay-per-view October 14th. Sign up at DAZN.com.